What up, Scott?
How are you guys?
Good. Are you furiously checking your dashboards right now to make sure everything's working well?
How do you know me so well already?
I mean, we're furiously checking them, and we have no stake in the game. So,
all right. So you are product director. I think you lead trading at Coinbase, and seems as if the ICO platform, token sales on Coinbase, has been your baby for the last little while. Would love to just start off with asking how this thing came to be and why now.
Yeah, we have, I can't take all the credit for this. We have an incredible team who's done a lot of work, who's, been working nights and weekends and was, incredibly prepared for the launch we did exactly 3 hours ago today. So I deserve very little of the credit, but this is something we wanted to do for a long time. We've played a role as a business in being a great secondary market for crypto for a long time, right? We didn't create Bitcoin, but a few years after Bitcoin was created, we offered a way to buy Bitcoin easily. And now we have, 300 plus assets on our exchange, and we offer access to DEX assets on exchanges, that are decentralized on chain. And that's great. But what we hadn't really played a role in is primary issuance, which is what we're doing today for the very first time. So this is a huge milestone for us. And a lot of it, was informed by, what we see as like an improved regulatory environment through a lot of the work that we did with, organizations like Stand With Crypto over the last few years, and an administration that is, more interested in seeing crypto do good things for the world. And so this is a very important first step. By no means this is the last thing that we'll ever do. And kind of primary issuance, we have a very ambitious vision for how we can help connect, buyers and sellers of tokens, well beyond, I think, what we're seeing today with kind of crypto native, crypto only projects. But this is the best place to start, given you have, great teams doing amazing things on chain right now.
Cool. I want to get into that future, but I think it is interesting to see, and at least this is part of the read I had on it, where yes, there's sort of a more favorable stance that the regulators are taking right now, and yet we're still seemingly miles away from exact clarity on the regulations. I'm curious if you can give us some color on what is giving you such confidence in being able to offer token sales to retail traders in the United States as of today.
Yeah, totally agree. There's still lots of room for improved regulatory clarity. I think we've just seen a lot of really good engagement with our policy team. Our founder CEO, Brian Armstrong, is constantly in DC meeting with regulators. And so there's just kind of a good general trend while the kind of more formal regulation gets defined, in Capitol Hill.
Nice. That was my read too.
Yeah. I mean, can you talk about some of the, problems with existing ICO launchpads that you guys felt you were well suited to solve, or at least improve upon?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, having not really participated in this, and I don't think there's been a U.S. kind of retail focused distribution of primary tokens for 7 years now, right? 2018. So first of all, the technology's come a long way. Token sales back in 2017, 2018, like you had to send Bitcoin somewhere and wait for that Bitcoin to confirm on chain, which can take an hour if you're lucky, and then maybe something would happen longer term, and you probably had to if you're doing it with the regulated way, you had to do a bunch of DocuSigns and kind of formal stuff. If you're doing it in an unregulated way, you may have had to participate in a bunch of extractive mechanisms to even get a chance to do this, and you may not know if those tokens are really going to appear in somewhere that's not compliant or not at all regulated, that's very far offshore. And so we're trying to, yeah, that's kind of how a lot of new technology is developed, right? There's a lot of inefficiencies, and so I think we've hit the moment where the technology is way better, right? We have chains obviously Monad and Base and really great L1s and L2s that are way faster, right? So you can move USDC and other capital around way faster. And you have, platforms like Coinbase now that are very regulated, very compliant. Anyone who participates in this token sale has to be fully KYC'd and fully compliant and onboarded and have their account funded. And you just didn't have that a long time ago. And so we're trying to move away from, what we saw as a very extractive approach where both issuers and buyers of primary sales were exploited. they might be, the last person to ever participate, and there were no sorts of conditions that protected them after their investment, to a world where we're very kind of retail forward, protecting the way that tokens are then distributed and unlocked. And so if you look at a lot of the transparency that we're including here and in every token sale that we're enabling, we require issuers and prior investors to abide by certain standards, so that those people who participate in the token sale aren't the last people, but they're really the first people. They really have the power. In this token sale that we're doing today with Monad, retail is really the only participant that's buying, and really the only group of people that will have a meaningful float once this token starts trading in a week on secondary markets. And so we're really trying to turn the tables there, allow as many people in the retail community to participate, because we want them to be active users of these protocols, as opposed to just financially extracting and moving on to whatever else and not caring about the actual underlying projects.
I mean, how do you see the opportunity to convert all these maybe this new retail audience who is maybe kind of seeing the L1, L2 opportunity for the first time, buying some Monad tokens, ultimately getting into the ecosystem and kind of providing value there? Like, what does that funnel look like?
So I think the first thing is that we have, $100 minimum to participate. Sorry, 100 USDC. Technically, we're transacting everything in USDC, which is a much lower barrier than I think you've seen elsewhere. We don't require people to, stake a certain amount or buy the Coinbase anything. Like we don't do that. If you're a Coinbase One member, you can have a higher requested limit for an allocation, but anybody can request, whether you're a Coinbase One member, if you've ever used Coinbase before today, or you just decided to onboard for the first time. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that we're integrating the networks that we offer and want people to use them right away. And so with Monad next week, we will have sending and receiving available, so you can immediately go on chain with your self-custodial wallet and do things on chain, as opposed to having to wait or having some sort of lockup for people who just bought the token. There is no lockup. They can go and use the tokens right away. And so we're hoping that both broader distribution, as opposed to like a few whales that buy all the tokens, but instead you have like lots of people who might have a smaller but still meaningful amount to them, are able to go then tinker around and check out the different kinds of projects and capture some of the benefits that Keone talked about prior. And we see that here and in every sort of project that participates, because we're really trying to hold a high standard and not just let anybody participate on the platform, but really make sure that the teams are committed, that they have interesting experiences, that they're willing to be in this for the long term, and kind of put their tokens where their mouths are, and not just sell those and move on, which we've seen too many times in the past.
So retail is often described as dumb money, and I think a core premise of our show here is that turns out that they're maybe not the dumbest money out there, or that on aggregate we actually get to be pretty smart. The whole new class of internet investor emerging. But one of the big barriers we see, especially as we look at public sales, especially earlier stage public sales, is just the information asymmetry that causes a pretty big challenge in at least blocking potential investors from being fully informed. So I'm curious how you guys have thought through maybe the leap or the advancement that we can make here in disclosures and in helping folks be deeply informed about both the opportunity and the economic models and sale details.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that people have the information they need. And so if you go to the Monad token sale on Coinbase, which should be pretty easy to find from the home screen, the Coinbase app and website, you can see all sorts of details. What is the fully diluted valuation? How many tokens will be available? How much can you invest? Tell me about the project. And then there's a whole transparency report where you can understand what are the different lockup investing situations that different participants have. And I don't think that's been a common thing in a lot of prior sales. So that's just kind of the financial side of it. And then on the other side of it, there's not we don't expect a huge shift in capital or a huge kind of transfer of wealth to happen after this, or at least not a transfer away from retail that we've seen in a lot of other sales. And so ideally that gives folks who participate a lot more time to understand and use the project, instead of seeing institutions who might be very extractive, who got some, preferred access, or, a couple big whales, who are just selling right away. We don't expect that to happen as much because of the way that this is structured. I think also in crypto, you're seeing, and even in TradFi, you're seeing like retail be the smart money. Not a big fan of like the smart money, dumb money terms, but like you've seen retail ahead of the curve, right? And things like launch pads and meme coin trading. We're not seeing institutions jump into that as much as you're seeing retail do really well, and then kind of institutions follow. And we've seen some meme coin DATs, as a result. And you could argue like that's a little bit later to the party. I'm not saying this is going to be one of those things that like changes the dynamic for the entire industry, but I think it's a first example.
I'm interested in how you're approaching the curation side. Is this kind of the big hero release and the floodgates are going to be open and we're going to see hundreds of these in the next few months? Or are you going to take a very, very kind of, top tier curated approach and kind of slow roll these out?
Yeah, much more the latter. We're more interested in quality over quantity. We're in this for the long term. We're not trying to maximize volume. I think if we do a project, every month or two, give or take, that we think is doing something interesting and meets a lot of the criteria we talked about, that I think we're on a good track.
Okay, well, let's push this into the future, because it sounds like you have a much bigger vision even than just what you've articulated there, both in the sort of types of assets that come on, and I'm assuming the breadth of assets that come on too. So how do you think about this opportunity in the 18-month, 2-year sort of timeline?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks there. I think it's hard to say what the exact timeline is. It could be 5 years from now or 10 years from now, but I think our vision is that crypto native projects that are doing things on chain that people like us understand really well, but a lot of the general population has no relationship to, are awesome, and we're going to do as much as we can there. But I think longer term, I think we hope that like regular businesses of all kinds are able to issue tokens and raise capital for their businesses on chain. And if you look at our token sale that we did today, it started at I think 30 minutes before the stock exchanges were open. Like, that's a nice benefit. It's gonna, it runs 24 hours a day. It's not nearly as value extractive as working with traditional Wall Street firms to sell securities. And so I think if you look at some of those properties of what you're able to do with crypto and bring that to more types of verticals, you could do some really interesting things. Now, obviously, there's a lot of regulation that has to happen. I'm not saying we're selling securities, doing anything like that anytime soon. But I think this is a first step down that path where we can entertain more real world assets and regular old businesses beyond the very cool crypto native issuers.
I'm curious what I assume your purview as kind of head of trading product is much broader than just this platform. I think you did integrated DEX into the main product, or DEX tokens into the main product a little bit ago. ICOs now. I think we had a Cleo on a month ago, kind of hinted at prediction markets and maybe some other categories you're interested in, but curious if there's another kind of big new category swing coming in the near future.
Yeah, we've talked about our concept for this notion of what we call the everything exchange, which is that you should be able to come to Coinbase and pool all of your capital across traditional USD, traditional asset classes like stocks, ETFs, and of course crypto, and be able to trade anything. And our vision is to make asset classes much more interesting because of crypto. So whether it's we're doing primary token sales for companies that are very traditional, but it's easier to buy their offering on crypto rails, we want to be able to enable that. Or if you're trading traditional equities on Coinbase, to be able to do interesting things because we can tokenize those equities and you can use them on chain in the same way that you're using CBBTC on chain today, which is a tokenized form of Bitcoin on a bunch of different networks that we offer. So that's our longer term vision. We're heads down, focused on a lot of these different aspects. And so hopefully people are enjoying what we've launched with DEX, and we have a bunch more stuff coming soon in the next month or several weeks.
So I'm really interested in how you guys are thinking about, I guess it's competition. I mean, so clearly Base is the L2 of Coinbase, and is planning on launching a token at some point. Is thinking about planning on maybe launching a token at some point in the future. Monad would be seen as a competitor to that at some level. And so I'm also seeing this sort of acquisition to vertically integrate on the Coinbase side, and at the same time, Base looking to really go build a broad ecosystem and have a lot of new companies, projects, etc., emerge from there. And it seems to me as if those things might come in direct competition sooner or later if they haven't already. So how are you guys thinking about this internally, or at least just two separate initiatives that you guys are running at? Do they come together in an important way at some point?
I think we're doing some really awesome things with Base. And when you think about what Jesse and team are doing, they're really trying to build the best ecosystem for creators, for developers, and just make sure that that's always a great place for people to innovate on crypto. And there's a lot of really great momentum there. I've been really impressed with what that team's accomplished. What we're focused on in trading and through the Coinbase app is also enabling everything possible. So we have really great integrations with Base, but we know that Base might not be all things to all people all the time. It was a couple of weeks ago, I think we integrated BNB, the Binance's token, and we're trying to be as agnostic as possible, or just like our principle basically is agnosticism, so long as we're comfortable with the different listings criteria that we've published around different networks. And so Monad's a good example of that as well. Like, is it competitive with Base? Maybe, to the extent that anything on chain is competitive with Base. But I think if we can rise the tide, like, all boats will improve. And we really want to be able to not have the lack of something being available a reason for people not to come to Coinbase.
Improve all boats instead of burn the boats. There you go. That's your new poster. Improve all boats.
Love it.
You got anything else, Josh? I mean,
we could go forever, but probably take enough.
Yeah, we need to be conscious of your time. Yeah, we're stoked. I mean, to me, this is notable leadership in a space that I wasn't really expecting you guys to take leadership in. And I know you sort of drew back to the early days of sort of the impact Coinbase has had on the industry. And I would say that is sort of taking an early bet on something that just really didn't feel real or had a lot of risk or uncertainty on it. And I think launching a Base is another example of that. But this feels like sort of actions over words in a way that I think is a strong mark in the sort of like things I'm bullish on moving forward. Because I think the regulatory environment is one that is, I think, easily and probably correctly pointed to as the main detriment or inhibitor of the growth of crypto. I think we're all waiting and excited about seeing, both the shift in sort of approach to regulations, but ultimately the sort of pen to paper and how that ultimately comes to be. But this is bullish in my mind from just being able to take action on the direction and the momentum. And I think it's clearly a net good for individuals to be able to participate in these things and to do so hopefully at earlier and earlier stages, so that we're not continuing to privatize all the upside and in innovation. It seems like the people get to suffer the distribution of technology, or the disruption of technology and innovation. And this is, I think, a clear step in the direction of allowing us to both participate in something that hopefully gets to define the future. So kudos on the good work. Wish you guys really well over the next little while. I have no doubt that it's going to be popular. I don't know where are we at right now? Do you have a dashboard in front of you that can sort of articulate the first few hours?
We've sold, I guess, in the first 3 hours and 17 minutes, we've sold $74 million. It's a few million more than when we started this a few minutes ago.
That's global finance, man. Just the scale. I think that was a great point that Keone made earlier. It was just like, I think it's very hard to grok the scale of potential of global access and global markets here. And yeah, not something to take the under on. Scott, appreciate you showing up with us today, man, and sort of laying out the future here for Coinbase and ICOs. Let me buy tokens early, baby. That's what I want. That's just what I want. I want to be a part of it.
I love it.
Yeah, best of luck as you go through the next weeks. And yeah, eager to see what comes out next.
We'll have you back on when you have the next thing to announce, man.
It'd be great to be back. Thank you, guys.
Let's go.
Awesome, man. Cheers.
Peace.
See ya.